Mhm.
Okay. Hello and welcome to Ethereum Classic Community Call number 45. Today is Friday, January 16th, 2026. It's the first call of the year in 2026, so Happy New Year to everyone that's listening. This is a community call and it's a voice discussion about Ethereum Classic. It's open to everyone, so please come and join. The call will be published on YouTube, so let's be nice to each other. You can join us 1 hour before the call every week in the green room if you want to chat offline. You'll find us in the Discord at the Dev Meeting voice channel. We have a community calls website, which you can browse past episodes, subscribe to the calendar, and read AI summaries at cc.ethereumclassic.org. And I wanted to mention the ETC Grants DAO, who are able to help you find funding for your ETC project. You can find more information at etcgrantsdown.io. And this is also for ambassadors for ETC, helping spread the word. I'm going to start the call this week with a bit of a sad note. Unfortunately, last year, November 2nd, 2025, prolific contributor to Ethereum Classic, Donald McIntyre, passed away. And I'd like to just take a moment to respect his contributions and say thanks to him. And he's been one of the major contributors to Ethereum Classic, so I think we all respect his contributions. So thanks, Donald. And if you open the show notes, you'll find a link to Bob Summerwill's tribute to Donald McIntyre on the bobsummerwill.com website if you're looking to find more information and pay tribute to Donald's contributions. So with that, let's move into the main content. I'm going to be starting the call each month now with a pull requests corner to mention the open and pending pull requests that need attention and or things that have changed in the main repositories on Ethereum Classic. The main thing that's happened since the last call is that ECIP 1120 has now been merged. This is now part of the ESIPs repo, and we're able to get that published. So now we have this as a starting point, and we can then move on to the next stages of the research required for both ECIP 1120 and potential mechanisms within Olympia proposal. So that would be the smoothing mechanism and the number of blocks for the distribution that we talked about in previous calls. So stay tuned for updates on that. And we're, I think, potentially going to be figuring out a research plan to make sure we get everything needed. And maybe on this call, we can discuss the details of that and what needs to be done there with regards to the different stages and the client code work that needs to be done to test what the future parameters might be. There's a number of other PRs that need to be addressed, one being ECIP 1121. Author, Real Cody Burns, on the call. Cody, would you like to talk a bit about 1121?
Yeah, happy to. So the motivation behind 1121 is to get Ethereum Classic up with the rest of mainnet Ethereum and the other EVMs. So this is all of the opcodes and code-based changes that are setting gas limits and blocks that are aligned with the current version of Ethereum mainnet. And so all of these are already in the core Geth client since it's been merged from upstream. So it would require testing on the Mordor network, but these would all be configuration changes that could be pushed and setting block numbers and with no additional development effort like it would take with 1559 or a DAO or any of that. These are code that's largely already in Geth, and it's a matter of setting configuration. So it's similar to Spiral and the other ones that we've done before.
Awesome. So this would be a nice, I guess, low effort progress to be made this year if this gets part of a hard fork that
Hmm.
that would not affect the other research and Olympia slash. I guess it depends how we describe Olympia, but the set of ECIPs 1111 to 1115 and the 1120 debate notwithstanding, this can still
Hmm.
move ahead basically, and they could
Yeah,
be deferred to a separate hard fork.
yeah. I think that this would get us everyone the modern features that are across the other EVMs without potentially burning it down with us. Uh,
Mm.
or I think we should decouple the two because 1559 is going to require research and work and development. I think it's either we can set a date, say March, of if significant progress hasn't been made, then these can we can go ahead with the 1121 uh, elements on the testnet, and then
Mm-hmm.
continued research on 1559 and 1120.
Yep. Awesome. Are there any notable EIPs that think need to be mentioned, or is it all pretty much smooth sailing? Is there anything that is specifically requiring additional thought when applied to Ethereum Classic?
Uh, There is. So with the mainnet Ethereum, a lot of the improvements are around the blobs and the blob sharding and pure DOS. Uh, and so there's one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight or nine that are uh, blob specific that are deferred for Ethereum Classic since we haven't decided what we're doing uh,
Mm-hmm.
with blobs or if it's something that's interesting or useful for the L1. And then there's also some that are around the 1559 or that were specific for proof of stake that don't really translate over. But for the ones that are actually useful, I guess, to Ethereum Classic, there's some that are in the execution context. So memory improvements and saving historical block hashes are in there. There's also cryptography and some new precompiles. So the BLS 12 381s curves, these are for zero knowledge proofs and BLS signatures, verifying them on chain. And there's also
Mm-hmm.
the precompiles for elliptic curves. So the algorithms that are used for like the passkeys in your phone, uh, those precompiles are now in Ethereum. It's EIP 7951. So this allows things like account abstraction to use cryptography that's other than just uh, externally owned account. And
Mm-hmm.
it makes wallets safer and more accessible to the masses. So that's a would be a real big win to have.
Awesome. Are any of these cryptographic pre-computes related to L2? Does this open possibilities for any L2 technologies?
Uh, any that would use the BLS signatures for their verifications, I can't recall off the top of my head if it is, which
Mhm.
ones do. But yes, essentially, I mean, this makes it cheaper in general to verify these signatures on chain and proofs by them. So uh, all in all, I guess a big win. The precompiles in general, I guess, for the audience that might not be aware, there Ethereum has it's a world computer, as everyone knows. There's also inside of that world computer, there's operation codes. So like add, subtract, or store this data bit. And these are all how gas is measured. And each one of those operations has a cost that in microseconds on a compute. And so this is how in the back end everything gets weighted to figure out how much transaction cost we go off how many operations it does. And so some of the operations that are really useful, like validating signatures or doing SHA-256 hashes or KCAC hashes, are really computationally expensive as far as how many operations they take on a computer. But there's something that Ethereum and Ethereum Classic do as just part of the system operations. So there are certain contract addresses that are set aside, the ones that start with zeros, all zeros, and then a single digit at the end. So 1 through, I'd be lying if I said off the top of my head, I think we're up to like 10 maybe, precompiles. And so these are operations that we know are commonly used across Ethereum. And so adding the BLS signatures and the precompiles for the SecP 256R1 makes these, we get to set the price for them, basically, or the system sets the price for them. So instead of being 2,000 operations in the system that would cost an enormous amount of gas, you can use the precompile address, and then it only costs whatever the fixed amount is. And so this makes it easier for us to bring cryptography on chain without having to sacrifice gas cost or make everything enormously expensive.
Awesome. And the actual gas costs for these operations, we're just going to follow upstream Ethereum?
That's been the plan so far, yes. Just go with the defaults. There are, occasionally the gas does get reset for some of the fields. So whenever there was, years and years ago, there was an attack on the network that was during Hong Kong, one of the Hong Kong consensuses. And it was one of the gas operations was priced too low. It was storing data in or doing a delegate storage or something like that. And an attacker had figured out how to exploit that, and they were just creating a ton of bloat on chain. They were creating contracts that just had their storage filled up with just garbage, basically. And so to fix that, a hard fork was coordinated, and it changed the gas price on that. And so historically, gas prices are changed through that method. And there are, so in ECIP 1121, there's 6 different EIPs that are just around gas accounting and state access. So those are in there too, and we are pulling from upstream. And it's more, I guess, about, it's a safety constraint of this is what everyone's using. If there's not a better reason for pricing these different on ours yet that has presented itself. So staying with this, it's one less variable to mess with.
Interesting. Looking at the gas accounting and state access EIP 7825, this would introduce a protocol level cap on the maximum gas used by a single transaction. Are you familiar with the rationale behind that?
From you mean from the Ethereum side, or just in general the concept of why capping the gas? Yeah, it's because it's a denial of service vector. So whenever for Ethereum Classic, it would be really important because as this comes in, all the miners process every transaction that they get, or every node does before they pass it in theory. But so capping the gas prevents an attacker could create a contract that just does 1 million loops and uses up all the gas in a block, and but then fails on the last operation. And so they could flood the network with those, and it would just exhaust the miner's time or the validator's time in the case of Ethereum. And so capping the gas prevents that from happening and makes the network a little more stable because we know what size transactions come. There's a gas cap right now on Ethereum Classic. Again, I should have written some numbers down for this. I want to say we're capped at 8 million right now. Or we were at one point, and that prevents things like submitting really big contracts on chain is where you run into this the most. So it causes developers to play kind of a game of golf whenever they're making contracts? Before they split out into a library
Right.
and have a different contract for? What do they have for? And so it ends up with really fragmented code and or modular code, I guess, depending on how you want to think about it.
Yeah.
And so this just makes it easier to make more complex logic in one place and raises that limit that we've already had.
So the 8 million gas is the block limit. Is that what you're referring to? Like the total gas limit for a block, or is that on a transaction basis?
This is a single transaction.
EIP 7825 introduces on a single transaction, but the current Ethereum Classic block limit is there a single transaction limit, or is that just a block limit?
I'll have to check and get back with you, actually, now that you've mentioned it and put me in the hot seat.
Okay.
Yeah,
Not
I'll check
intentional.
and get back. Yeah.
As
No,
far
no,
as
it's good.
I understood, there was no like single transaction limit on Ethereum Classic other than like the block limit, which de facto transaction
Yeah.
limit as well. But this is interesting because it plays into the the 1559 discussion.
Hmm.
And if there is a transaction gas limit, it kind of nullifies the point of having very stretchy blocks, because we are like intentionally capping the transaction limit. So there's no
Yeah.
need to have those extra large transactions. There was some discussion in the past about the idea of it being beneficial to have massive transactions, but if Ethereum mainnet is intentionally limiting them, then I
Hmm.
don't see any need for Ethereum Classic to have bigger than whatever Ethereum has, because that will become a de facto standard.
Yeah. And 8 million is what our block limit is.
Yeah.
So interesting.
And in that case, like double, if we follow Ethereum's path for having double, if the stretchiness is basically double, which is what Ethereum's doing, then 8 million times 2 is basically this transaction gas limit cap with a bit of additional wiggle room for miners to increase or decrease the gas limit, I guess. But
Yeah, because miners set the gas limit themselves,
yeah,
but this, I guess, would limit the actual transaction limits.
yeah. But that's actually quite a nice feature, I think. And yeah, for the anti-denial of service, but also given that Ethereum is using this standard, then there's really no advantage for Ethereum Classic to try and have like some special standard in this case.
Well,
Like, yeah,
we're also a lot smaller block size than Ethereum is. Ethereum's 45 to 60 million, or 45 to
right.
60. So they're almost 10x us.
Mm-hmm. One of the research questions with 1120 was, shall we have like a 4x or a 16x stretchiness to blocks, which would mean an effective gas limit of potentially like a million, like sorry, 100 million gas or something like that,
Yeah.
temporarily. But there's like no advantage to that if the transactions are capped to 16 mil. So a much more in line with Ethereum block elasticity seems to be more appropriate then. If this set of EIPs is adopted, which I think seems very reasonable.
Yeah. And I can't, I've been deploying contracts a lot lately. 8 million's, it's tight, but it's not incredibly restrictive.
Mhm.
A lot can still be deployed. So 16 million's uh, a really safe buffer on top of that because it's
Yeah,
what, double.
right.
Um, and then
And
the
it
block
would,
elasticity would let the miners expand up to however much they need.
yeah, and with 1559, then they would get that 16 mil if needed.
Yep.
Cool. That's it's a nice coincidence that is almost exactly perfect for a Ethereum Classic. Cool. Yeah, I'll need to have a closer look on all of these particular EIPs, but I don't see, at least at first glance, any reason why this should not be acceptable.
Yeah, and it's in the we can share the link out in the call notes for this so we can get comments on it. It's in the repo. Be good to have discussions on it too and just get everyone's just overall thoughts.
Yep.
Because yeah, as we discussed, I mean, 1559 is important. It's one of those things we want to get right and take time to develop, but we also don't want to fall too far behind the rest of the Ethereum world while we're doing it as well. It's our gas works as it works today.
Right.
So yeah.
And I've just approved the pull request for 1121. So you can go ahead and do the honors of merging that if you're okay with that.
Yeah, sending it in now, and we'll open it up. I'll create a discussion thread on it also in the ECIP world.
It mentions that this ECIP introduces no new protocol changes and does not affect backwards compatibility.
That's probably not true. That was a, let me edit that before we merge that. Yeah, that's boilerplate. Good call out. Sure. Okay, so I'll get that edited and merged and open for discussion.
Awesome. I'm glad we're able to discuss that. And yeah, that would be a nice win for Ethereum Classic this year. That seems like it's not too controversial. Okay. There's a couple of lingering PRs open. One is an external ECIP validator gem that was causing issues. It's not pressing, but if I could remind maintainers to take a look at that. And also 5551. I was hoping Chris might be able to join the call again, but
This is the one reclassifying Olympia.
Yeah.
ECIP.
Yeah, basically, I think Olympia should be standard track core in line with the other conversation we have with 1120. But neither of those are super pressing. So I basically just wanted to flag the PRs that need attention at this point in the call, and we can look at them.
Yeah, this is good
in the coming week. Cool. Well, I guess we can move into the main topic. And Freebird, Chris Mercer mentioned a comment in the Discord, which I wanted to maybe address. And yeah, he's basically bringing up the funding issue, which we have talked about in previous calls, and to kind of trim things down. Concretely, the risks he's watching are client maintenance slowing down and stalling, consensus EVM compatibility risk over time, public RPC availability degrading, Explorer indexing funding degrading. If infra and maintenance slip, exchanges, miners, users feel it first via liquidity and integration friction. And his question is, how do other networks keep core maintenance and critical infra predictable and sustainable without becoming permanently dependent on a single sponsor? So I think there's a number of points in there. And with regards to like the exchanges and block explorers and that kind of stuff, I'm not sure if that is something that can really ever be covered by a protocol layer funding mechanism for a project like Ethereum Classic. I think if the argument were to be refined to client maintenance, I think there's more of an argument there. The problem I think is that the risk of like introducing, I mean, we've had this conversation many times with the Treasury.
Mhm.
It's the whole kind of debate that's going on, but
It's a very hard problem to
it is.
solve. And from the co-op's point of view, I am on the board of the co-op.
Mhm.
The the co-op is still alive and funding things. Right now, the focus is on supporting ecosystem partners. Like I've been doing a lot of outreach with the custody providers that are servicing pretty much all of the industry right now. So the Fireblocks, Anchorages, uh, DFNS, all of the ones that are providing custody as a service for banks and businesses and users who don't want to manage keys are now all supporting Ethereum Classic and continue to keep up that relationship with uh, all the exchanges and liquidity providers as well. So that outreach is still going on. Ethereum Classic is still well supported. We're still the Pepsi to Ethereum's Coke. Uh, in the fullness of time, whenever block rewards run out and everyone's transactions are paying for themselves, proof of work is a more efficient version than proof of stake for a blockchain system transactionally. And proof of work is still the most fair distribution system of coins while the block reward is going on. So none of that changes. It's still the narrative that's there and in the world. The client maintenance is definitely a concern of mine. We have CoreGeth as our main client, and the ETC grant style is funding some developers to come on board to continue with the maintenance of that as the development teams who will be taking it over long term come. But Diego's also been doing a lot of work with other clients. So the Nevermind client and the Besu client, finding ways of, they have toolkits that allow us to build on top of them. So Ethereum Classic is a lightweight plugin that lets you use these other clients, which is, I think, a more sustainable long-term plan than the co-op or any entity funding long-term the node itself. I said it's a common problem across open source. Bitcoin is the only one who's somehow managed to figure it out. Of people fund the developers just because, or the developers were there early enough and got all the funding they ever needed. But other projects aren't so lucky. And I think most blockchain projects, whenever you pull back the covers, it's really a team who's there and they're dedicated and they're putting in the work. So not to downplay what any of the blockchain networks or teams are doing, but it's a lot of the decentralization is in the spirit and their heart rather than the network itself as far as funding and development goes. And so we are seeing the ones that were more centrally funded. So the Hedera's, Ripple's, Solana, those are the ones that are in the news cycle right now. They still have their huge war chests and they're entirely centralized pretty much from the development and roadmap point of view. And so that's the risk you run. You do have funding, you do have support, you have people in Congress doing lobbying, but you also are kind of locked in on a mission of whatever your chain's doing, whatever the company's doing, that's the mindset of it. Zcash recently has been in the news of they're famously funded by their block reward, and they were nonprofit companies, or all the entities were set up as nonprofits, and so their governance funding right now is going through a transition, and so the companies that were nonprofits have been funding themselves in the meantime. And if you're a development company that has developers who are doing really niche things like building zero knowledge proofs and wallets that incorporate all of this stuff, that's an expensive skill set to keep on staff. And so the ECC made a big announcement of all their developers had quit, and there was a cycle of that in the news. But what had happened was they had moved from being a nonprofit to being a for-profit company, so that they could find out how to actually get funding through their wallet.
I see.
And
through
and I
their
think
wallet, not their grants.
Right, through their wallets, not their grants. So the ECC, the Electric Coin Company, was the group that originally started Zcash, and they had built the Zcash node, and they had built a wallet. But during the life of Zcash, the Zcash Foundation, which was another nonprofit group that was managed the IP, built a node as well. And so now they maintain the core node software, and the Electric Coin Company had the Zashi wallet, was what their product was. And they did outreach in Washington, D.C., and were active in the community and other things as well. But their big product was the Zashi wallet. And so wallets are, like I said, one of those things that takes a lot of development, a lot of effort to keep up with. It's a non-trivial task. And so everybody else in the blockchain ecosystem gets paid as you send a transaction. So the other side gets paid, the miners get paid, but the software that you use is one of those things that is for some reason verboten to get paid for in blockchain. So the Geth nodes and the wallets themselves are not something that people traditionally pay for. And that is where I think a lot of development teams are right now, is they're trying to figure out, they love the space, they love the technology, but how do they get paid for it? And that's where the custody providers are coming in for businesses, because they handle all the complexity of key management and accounts and all the weird stuff that banks and businesses don't want to deal about when they're dealing crypto. And they provide just an easy interface for that. And so wallets do a similar thing for everybody who uses blockchain. And for most people, their wallet is their entire life on the blockchain. They're not going to run a node. They're not ever going to build an application on top of it. They want their Brave wallet or their Brave browser to take them to a website, and they can play with their crypto cats or log in and make predictions on what the weather's going to be. So,
or even just
figuring.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry, I'm monologue.
Yeah, you're talking about basically Zcash moving to this wallet model, and like the co-op already does operate a multi-sig wallet, right? So is that not something that could be turned into a monetizable thing that helps sustain development in other areas?
Yes, it could. The co-op runs the Gnosis Safe software as a service. And so one of the things, I guess one of the goals from me this year would be to get that fully integrated with Gnosis. So whenever that was stood up, it was early on in the multi-sig or Gnosis Safe journey. And so since that implementation on Ethereum Classic, Gnosis has moved to a more modular architecture, and they support multi-chains. And so now there's a process of deploying contracts on chain using their safe singletons and registering with them, so that Ethereum Classic could be fully supported in the Gnosis Safe app as a first-party chain. And so I think that's the best route for that.
but there could still be like a Casa node style, like
Mhm.
third party safety. I don't know how to describe it, but like one of the signers being like a trusted party that provides like recovery mechanism, for example. Um,
Yeah.
Also, just the whole onboarding process is complicated and scary for a lot of people. So having handholding there would be an opportunity. And I guess also, I think there's some other like fallback, because one of the issues with Gnosis system is that it's very heavily leaning into their architecture, and
Yeah.
I
That's
believe
true.
that there's other like less complicated or like low fi versions that are still compatible with
Hmm.
the Gnosis contracts, but use like a standalone front end, for example, that don't require their whole backend system.
Yeah. That
So
is true.
having that redundancy of the front end as well as the additional services that help onboard people could be a package in itself that is valuable and people might be willing to pay for, and might even be able to pay a percentage of what they're holding.
Well, that's that's where the nonprofit side gets kind of tricky. Of
Mhm.
The co-op exists because it exists entirely on donations, and the money that it's running on right now was generously donated by the Grayscale Ethereum Classic Investment Trust. It had set up a fund for Ethereum Classic, and as part of the investments, it funded the ecosystem. And so that money has been what's the co-op's been running on. There is a community multi-sig that's still out there that we haven't ever decided what to do with as a community that
Mhm.
could be used for this if the co-op's providing value uh, to the community, and it is. But the co-op is designed to work off donations or work off projects in the ecosystem that find value donating back into them.
Yeah,
And so running a service or doing consulting work out of the co-op is would jeopardize what its charter is as far as taxable entity and things like that,
understood.
which is the conundrum
I'm
that the ECC found itself in.
right, exactly. I'm seeing the parallel,
Yes, and
and I
so
guess
one way
the
that could be helpful would be if the co-op was valuable to projects that are actually running in the Ethereum Classic ecosystem, and then those groups were able to give back because there are projects that are running in live and people are making a living out in the space. So getting the co-op connected with those people and bringing value to them and having them donate back would be helpful.
I see. Yeah, and it would. I mean, that's basically kind of already happening with the Bitmain.
It is. Yeah, Bitmain and the ETC grant style are separate from the co-op. They have their own grants process, and uh, yeah, no, I think that's great as well. Of people just investing in the
Right.
space on their own, or yeah, it doesn't have to be through the co-op. If
And they're not focused on client maintenance at all, really. It's more for ecosystem expansion and education, I suppose. And the client maintenance being the key thing, um, still can be basically solved by the co-op for the foreseeable future, as far as I understand.
yes, uh, the nodes are safe. They're online and maintained for the foreseeable future.
Cool. Um, this might be a good time to shift into the next topic, which we kind of had a bit of a chat in the green room about, which is related to a research plan and how things might actually um, how we can write some code at least for potential options for 1559. Um, and as a non-Go developer, I don't see like a massive barrier anymore due to AI tools in terms of actually implementing like relatively simple features, especially if there's reference implementations already in other clients like Besu, which there is the uh, for the block subsidy return to miners system that 1120 proposes. And that would be like one of the requirements in the research phase to determine whether or not the client will be able to handle it. Obviously, I would not, as you signaled, be comfortable with publishing production code without having like someone that knows what they're doing at least take a look at it first. So maybe this could be a model whereby we can cobble together something that's kind of working and only at the final stage get some more expensive and trusted eyes on it to get it past the finish line into production. This may be a more like economical way of doing development going forward.
Yeah, I'm definitely like before the show we were talking, and Claude Code is amazing. It blows my mind every time I use it. Um, so it's definitely within the next 5 years going to completely replace development. We're coming up to really close, I think, on that too. So the Fukui client that I've been testing with is that's was kind of my test bed for the same thesis that you had. I don't write Scala. I don't write Java code. And that Mantis client was entirely written in it. And so using the AI tools, able to add all the features that were missing from between the Magneto fork and the latest Spiral fork. So yeah, Claude Code's amazing at reading code bases and knowing how to do patches, and having well-written specs is really helpful with the code. So you can give the AI the spec, the code base, example implementations. So since we have core geth running, I was able to point to it and say, this is the reference implementation. As we're building this function, we need to validate that we're following the same patterns it is. And then, so yeah, the space we're in and the open source side of it has lends itself really well to AI development. The safety part and all the slop is still an issue, but
yeah,
for getting a
right.
PFC out the door, this is hands down the way to go.
There may be some useless code paths introduced, but at least it works. And
Yeah,
that's where
no,
that's where the final editorial from like an actual seasoned Go or whatever language you're writing in is extremely useful. But I think a lot of the work can be done by anyone at this point, as long as they're somewhat competent developer and knows how to create the validation that's required for the AI to kind of to progress. And I'm thinking that having multiple multiple implementations is super useful for enhancing that validation loop. So if you can have a monorepo with 3 different code bases and they can all sync and you can run a set of tests and they all behave as expected, it's highly likely that at least they will sync in real life.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I find that what I'm doing most of the time is defining the constraints on the system rather than the actual code itself. I'm writing the tests that it has to pass for just part of the software lifecycle of it writes the test, I write the test, it writes the codes. So I can tell it what it needs to do to pass, and the code may have a million different paths that aren't actually used and fun comments in it, but as long as it can pass the test and do what it needs to do, and it can fail in a predictable, deterministic manner, then the constraints work and the code works. So
right. And you can tidy things up at the end.
yeah, make sure it does what it's supposed to do and not do what it's not supposed to do, and then the cleanup
Yeah.
and pretty part of it is a human task.
Cool. And I think it'd be really nice to have like an environment set up where we can quite easily implement these things as non-Go developers and test them and have like a set of tests and a suite that we can run to move fast on
Cool.
this kind of development. And for whatever is implemented in 1559, there's a number of things that will need to happen. So that seems like a really good starting point to set up some kind of staging ground for that in Go. Maybe a fork of.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say there is an Ethereum test harness that's used for their clients. It's a Hive. It's an end-to-end testing suite that all the execution clients run through. That could be something like that could be adapted probably. It's
Yeah.
in GitHub. It's Ethereum/Hive, and that's its whole function is making sure that it kind of fights the nodes against each other. For Fukui, I had the Gorgoroth testnet that I was using, which is a similar thing. It would spin up Besu nodes, Geth nodes, or the Fukui nodes, and make sure that they sync, make sure that they're able to pass transactions, and all of that.
Cool.
Let me see. I'll see what the effort is to break that out and merge it into the Ethereum Classic so we can have kind of a testing bed that's not in any one project.
That'd be awesome. And how does it work with importing the different client versions? Are they like submodules to get built?
It pulls them in as Docker images, so just from the Docker Hub, or it can build them from the latest version in your repo and then store them in GitHub container registry if we wanted to do it like that.
Right.
And that way we could keep it up to date because anytime there's a push to one of the repos, it would could automatically rebuild.
Yeah. Does
Ethereum
Classic
let me take a pass at it?
Okay. Does Ethereum Classic have any images pushed to the container thing on GitHub?
The Geth node is in the ETC Labs core Docker Hub. I don't believe we have one in an official Ethereum Classic Docker Hub repo. I do think we have it provisioned. I don't know if we've ever used it. I know we have one for the apt repo as well for Linux, but we've never pushed code to that either. Everything's just always come out of whichever group was doing the nodes at the time.
Cool. This might also be a nice thing to set up with 1121 if it's just a case of flipping some switches as a kind of sample. Yep. It'd be nice to get Besu and Go core Geth.
Yeah,
running
let me
in
take a pass at
in
this
this test
weekend.
bed. Cool.
I have some cycles. Cool. I do have to drop here shortly. I'm getting pinged.
All right. Yep. We're coming up to the hour, so yeah, thanks for joining. I can bump the other topic to a later call as it's not super pressing anyway. So yeah, I'll try and organize another call for next month in February. And until then, take care.
Yeah. Take care.
All right. Thanks, Cody. See you next time.